Ladies and gentlemen,
Live from the van down by the river.
Starring
Mike Murray
and
Nicole Rovine.
This
is
SNL.
SNL. By the numbers.
numbers.
Hey everyone, it is a Wednesday night. We are back, SNL By The Numbers, covering episode 940 of Saturday Night Live, hosted by Aubrey Plaza, musical guest Sam Smith. And Aubrey Plaza is the seventh first-time host this season. She's, it's her first time on the show, but Sam Smith back for the third time. And as always, I have my lovely co-host, Nicole Rovine. It is the age of Aquarius, Nicole. What's going on?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know that my moon and my rising are in Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sister sign.
I totally knew that.
You absolutely did know that. He is not being sarcastic, even if he thinks he is. You know me better than you think, Mike. You knew that. And Aquarius is the sister sign of my sun sign, so having that be my moon and rising is very complex and dynamic. And so, I mean, I'm like, this is as much my season as my son's season. So I'm really feeling it.
I thought you would, and I just think like the stars have aligned because of what guest we have on tonight. So
Right.
This is somebody I've been wanting to have on for a long time. And I put it out there on the interwebs and we got him. We have Sam Smith on the pod to cover the Sam Smith episode. Sam Smith, how are you tonight?
Oh, I'm so good. It's so good to be not famous and your friend, Mike, and finally on your podcast. I have to say, you two, I'm actually a fan. I'm a listener. So this is very exciting for me. As soon as we went on, my heart kind of skipped a beat. I can't believe I'm on a show I regularly listen to. The intro music and everything.
Yeah, it's like they say when you're in that like really small room behind the monologue door, and then all of a sudden they just shove you out there and it's live.
It felt that way. Very, very Tonight Show, first time SNL. Yes, but happy to be here. Truly.
Yeah, and if you do well, like Johnny Carson, I'll invite you to the couch and we'll chat after the show.
I feel like there's some people that are genuinely disappointed that I'm not the real Sam Smith right now. So just to be clear, I am the real Sam Smith. I'm older, taller, and that's it though. That's where it runs out.
Would you mind just sending out a formal apology at some point during the show, just if anyone was misled?
Well, I'm sorry, but I'm also glad I helped you out with maybe a couple extra viewers here and there.
We hope.
A couple extra suckers, we like to call them.
And Nicole,
Suckers. You mean Aubrey Plaza? I'm not Aubrey Plaza, but that's my legal name actually. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. So it's pretty cool. Mike is really the only person who is not bringing us sort of clickbait this evening.
one of a kind.
yeah, and Nicole,
Just kidding,
Sam,
that's
both
not true.
Leos. Both Leos.
You're a Leo. When's your birthday?
You're Leo? You just said something about the
yeah.
moon and the sun, and I thought you were like
I thought
sign.
Nicole was talking about like her son.
My son is in Leo. Oh, my child. Oh, please.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't even know you had a kid.
Oh, absolutely. I do not. When is your birthday?
I'm a Leo and a Capricorn rising, which makes a lot of people
That was
wince.
not my question. When is your birthday?
August 5th.
Oh, we're so close. I'm August 7th. That's
Oh,
so
really?
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
I don't know what Leos are, but I don't know.
We'll talk
Hopefully they're
off
good.
the air, 'cause,
Yeah, we'll talk next
I
show.
mean,
I'll
I
have.
would say we're pretty cool.
I hope they're good podcast guests. That's all I hope
Yeah,
for.
next time we'll have Obama on. I think he's like right around you guys too.
True.
He's a Leo.
True. Jeff
Anyway,
Gordon.
Bill
let's
Clinton's
get
a Leo.
to
A lot of presidents. Oh yeah.
Let's go.
It's the best. It's the best sign. Carry on. Carry on,
Let's,
Pisces.
Yeah, Pisces are cool too. We swim around. So Sam, first time on the show. I know you're a big comedy guy, and we recently just started talking about SNL. Like I didn't really know if you were into the show or if you had been following it. And obviously, I know you watched this past week, but like, take me to the beginning. Introduce yourself to our listeners. Like, what is your relationship with the show in general? Like, how did you discover it?
So yes, I do love to laugh and watch things that make me laugh. SNL is one of them. I grew up in Massachusetts, with two funny parents who I think were intent on showing their kids all the stuff they grew up with, including SNL. So for me, I think a lot of people started with the best ofs, the VHS best ofs, renting from Blockbuster, learning about a new person every week. Like, let's rent the Farley one. Let's rent the Nealon one. Let's rent the Farley one again. Let's not rent the Nealon one again. And then eventually I got really into the Armisen season, I'd say. And then I was telling you, Mike, I really haven't watched the show SNL in a long time for no particular reason. It's just, things change. You get interested in other things. But I watched this past one. It was the first time in a while. And it was just crazy how little has changed. If that makes sense. Yeah, in a good way.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, what do you think is like a long runner of the show that like stuck out to you, at least in this recent episode?
Gosh, it's something that I feel must have been coined by somebody, but it's a type of sketch that they do, and I almost want to call it the moving along sketch, where someone is a boring situation, and then someone in a sketch is completely insane. And then
like a slice of life sketch.
Right. Slice of life. And then somebody is absolutely insane. And then somebody after they're insane goes moving along. And then the sketch kind of continues with that sort of rhythm, that sort of beat, which is just like, to me, like an SNL staple,
right.
A boring situation and someone who's completely lost their minds. So it was nice to just revisit that basically fail-proof setup.
Right, totally.
And Aubrey Plaza was perfect for that. So
yeah, we talk about a lot on the show, like what makes a good host, and we do the numbers on that, of course. And like everyone always says, a host that feels like they're in the cast half the time is like a good host.
I forgot she was hosting.
Yeah.
For most of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, the White Lotus sketch, which we'll get into all these details, but for me, that was the moment where I was like, this, and Mike and I are on the same page that the best way to like filter down what's the best host. There are all these angles we could take, but ultimately, if you feel like a cast member like that, I'm totally with you. And that one, the Black Lotus rather, I was like that, like she is fitting right in, but also standing out. And that beautiful balance is like the best version of any host.
Right. I was going to ask you, Nicole, that's going to be my question, is just kind of assessing Aubrey before we get into the, we're going to look at the screen time in a second and look at everything. But it's just like, was she somebody that was, I know she's on your radar, but like someone that just met the expectations, or was she better than you thought?
Well, I have to say she was yet another one of my picks from the host draft that we did over the summer. Another one. I also had Keke Palmer on there, so I am absolutely winning that. So
you guys have a host draft?
We did over the summer. We did a host draft, a bunch of us.
God.
And so it was a first-time host draft. So I had Keke and Aubrey, among others.
People who had never hosted, Sam.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Who else did you have?
I had Jennifer Coolidge, who's another one I think will come on.
Yeah, likely.
Right.
Nicholas Braun. I had Sacha Baron Cohen. I had.
Has he never hosted?
A few others. Never.
Wow.
I had a really good list. Quinta Brunson. Lil Nas X. I had a really good one, and I'm gonna by the end of the season we'll absolutely have the most wins.
I think you'll get two more of those, honestly.
Oh yeah, I think I played my cards right on that one.
That's a lot of people I've never heard of, but
don't tell me that. These are all so important to me. Just kidding, it's okay.
VIPs.
But just to your earlier question, Mike. So my sort of hot take, my cold take is that I thought she was amazing and I enjoyed every second of it and I loved it. My hot take is I feel like there were too many cameos and it's sort of like attempted to outshine someone who didn't need all of that extra buzziness. And I'm not talking about Amy Poehler because that's like the perfect, fan service. Like that's beautiful. That's like what the show is all about, is cameos like that. But I mean, like having the episode where we have the current sitting president cameo should not also be the episode where we have like 7 other people just randomly, like the Property Brothers and Allison Williams, like everybody's just popping up all over the place. And I love it. I'm very pro cameo, but I do feel like Aubrey is someone who, like, there could have been no cameos and it would have been such a special episode. And so I feel like, and even like Allison Williams there wasn't a huge applause break for her. And like, if we hadn't been so spoiled with cameos all night, there would have absolutely been an applause break right away. So, and I know it was pre-tape, so it's a little different, but still, like, it felt like we were so spoiled that by the time we got new cameos, it was just like, oh, the huge another cast member. When it was,
I just threw a graphic up on the screen. It was something that I actually covered a few weeks back with that Sammy K of the network, and we were anticipating the Steve Martin short episode, and like, this is like a recipe for Cameo City. And then it was like, we had Kieran Culkin and Selena Gomez. We got 2 cameos, but that that's 2 compared to like 7 legit cameos, as in like a celebrity appearance, not counting someone who works on the show or a family member, which we had 3 set designers, and we had Aubrey Plaza's grandma Margie. So those are cameos too. But that was going to be my opening take. Actually, I'm like, when is a sitting president on SNL like the 4th thing that I want to talk about? So yeah, just while we're on it, Nicole inspired me. Just like I put it up on the screen. Most cameos since Kim Kardashian episode from last season, early last year, and by far the most this season. So Joe Biden, Tony Hawk, Amy Poehler, the 2 Property brothers, Sharon Stone and Allison Williams, were like what I considered to be like legit celebrity cameos, and then also Kim Petras is a musical guest cameo with Sam Smith. So I don't think anyone saw this coming, but it was kind of like, as our friend John likes to say, it felt like a party. So Sam, when you see an episode of SNL and people are literally just like popping out of the woodwork, does that excite you or does that distract you?
I'm really happy to see this graphic because that's what I was thinking in my mind. By the way, the graphic, says today, last episode was 7 cameos, and you look at the others next to it and it's just 0, 2, 0, maybe a 3 in there compared to 7. And it's like, it did feel like a party. And I was wondering, maybe this is just how it is. So I'm glad to hear that it's not a standard thing. I agree with you especially about the Biden thing. I just felt like whatever it was attempting to do, sort of humor wise, or just sort of re-inject him into the discourse or get a good viral tweet going, get a viral video, people being excited, just didn't work. It like didn't really work, and sort of seemed like a loss for everybody. So
yeah, my initial impression was like, this is like a deep fake, and then I was like,
I thought so too.
Real. Nicole,
I was looking at his mouth.
Nicole, did you
my God.
think that was real right away?
I thought it was real, but I was instantly like, okay, so we have the president, and it also, it's like he's not even technically from Delaware. Like, he's really more from Pennsylvania.
Really?
Like,
he's born in Scranton.
Right.
Yeah, he was not born in Delaware. So
well, I mean, he was a senator from Delaware for like 41 years.
Yeah, but just the whole from Delaware thing is sort of, and it was 2018 that she was voted the most famous person from Delaware. It's the whole thing was sort of a stretch to make a thing of it. But I know they've had, like, that wasn't the first time that Joe Biden has reacted to Aubrey Plaza being the most famous person from Delaware. But it was just, like, for such a special night otherwise. And I'm honestly glad, I'm like proud of us as a culture that is like the 6th or 7th thing that we're talking about from that night, because we all instantly see the value of like Amy Poehler and Aubrey Plaza and what that represents. Or like, again, like, I mean, Sharon Stone also, like, her history with SNL and how like Aubrey Plaza then did that picture inspired by Sharon Stone and one of her, photos. So like things like that, things that have more history and meaning, and not just the sentimental stuff, but also the fun. Like, I think that a couple seconds or a couple minutes of, or let's say 5 seconds of Amy Poehler on SNL to me is more valuable than 5 seconds of Joe Biden on SNL.
Totally.
I will say, if Biden walked on stage, it would have been crazy. I will say that, to give him some credit. It was just the cut, and like, no one saw it coming, and it was 9 seconds and it was over. So I was like, that was kind of bizarre. And side note, Aubrey Plaza, 4th host from Delaware. They've all hosted once. Valerie Bertinelli, Judge Reinhold, and Ryan Phillippe. So really a Mount Rushmore of Delaware SNL hosts right there.
Did you guys ever have like a principal who'd kind of be like, all right, it's pajama day, everybody, like don't like, spill your cereal, like just sort of try to be, that was a bad example, but like sort of just try to be in on the fun, and it just sort of backfires and everyone's just holding their breath until they leave. It felt that way with Biden. And I'm not calling him like a bad guy or whatever. I'm just saying it didn't make him look good if he was trying to do that, I guess. You know what I mean?
Also, he might have spoiled White Lotus. I don't know. I haven't seen that show.
Did he?
But yeah, I think he might have spoiled the show. Nicole?
Yeah, but if you haven't seen it yet, then I have no sympathy for you. Like I mean, it is like monoculture, as close as we've come to monoculture in like years, I would say. That show, how everybody except apparently you,
Mike, you seen it?
Was talking about it. Oh, I've seen it. I've devoured it. I've analyzed it. I've discussed it with everybody. Like, oh yeah. So I would say it was cool, but again, it felt like by the end of by the time he got the last word out, I was like worried that he couldn't like say all the words without like having a cough or something. Like it was like he was it seemed like he was more focused, and that was like the 10th take. He was trying to get out the words with comedy.
He inspires worry in the hearts of his people. He truly does.
It wasn't, I mean, how like it just reminded the fact that I'm not going to keep on crapping on this because it was fine, but it was.
We did it, Joe. We filmed the cameo on SNL.
But like the fact that it was a pre-tape, and this is more a commentary on politics than on the show or on our whatever. But like just the fact that it was a pre-recorded thing that I was like holding on for dear life to make sure he wasn't going to like cough or something like. All of that just reminded me of our political climate out here of like, oh yeah, our president is 80 years old and wouldn't just walk on to he wouldn't be like Elizabeth Warren, who by the way is not even that much younger than Joe Biden, but like she would just like, she did something just fun and silly and genuinely like present. And it just reminded me of our political, which is beyond, not about the show, but just like, our president is too old to be live on SNL. That was where I was like, America.
I agree. Yeah.
So let's look
get back to work.
Let's look at the screen time. It's a long list this week, as we just mentioned, with all these cameos.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
So I don't envy the job of Nicole Rovine reading this list, but let's do it. Let's reveal the screen time totals for the last episode.
Good thing I can talk very much. Okay, I'm going to go through them all for our audio listeners. I'm going to go a little bit faster than usual, but I'm going to do them all. Okay. Aubrey Plaza, 25 minutes, 4 seconds. Mikey Day, 10 minutes, 18 seconds. Kenan Thompson, 8 minutes, 50 seconds. Colin Jost, 8 minutes flat. Bowen Yang, 6 minutes, 56 seconds. Devin Walker, 5 minutes, 56 seconds. Molly Carney, 5 minutes, 34 seconds. Sam Smith, 4 minutes, 49 seconds. JAJ, 4 minutes, 7 seconds. Heidi Gardner, 3 minutes, 57 seconds. Sharon Stone, 3 minutes, 3 seconds. Amy Poehler, 2 minutes, 53 seconds. Ego Wodum, 2 minutes, 37 seconds. Michael Che, 2 minutes, 34 seconds. Marcelo Hernandez, 2 minutes, 5 seconds. Sarah Sherman, 1 minute, 56 seconds. Chloe Feynman, 1 minute, 37 seconds. Steve Higgins, 1 minute, 17 seconds. Kim Petras, 1 minute, 12 seconds. Andrew Dismukes, 1 minute, 7 seconds. Michael Longfellow, 1 minute, 1 second. Joe DiTullio, 38 seconds. Akira Yoshimura, 35 seconds. Keith Raywood, 32 seconds. Punky Johnson, 30 seconds. Tony Hawk, 20 seconds. Drew Scott, 20 seconds. Jonathan Scott, Allison Williams. Jonathan Scott, 20 seconds. Allison Williams, 14 seconds. President Joe Biden, 9 seconds. Margie Plaza, 4 seconds.
Woo!
Wow.
Whew.
Yeah, now go back, listen to that on 2X on whatever you listen to podcasts on. Wow.
Set the White Lotus theme music behind it. And if you know, you know. There it is. Yes.
Impressive, Nicole.
Thank you.
Yep, that's a lot of names.
This is a legendary chart. This is what Mike and I used to live together, and he'd squirrel away in his room for hours. And now I see this is what he was spending his time doing. I'm looking at the chart right now, and it's beautifully color coded. Let's see. So Aubrey Plaza, #1 screen time, right?
Yep.
So what should I be looking at here?
So we're basically the colors are for segments. So we have like the breakdown of cold open, monologue, live sketches, pre-tapes, the musical performances, and weekend updates. So you can
And all
see
of
like
those are all combined. So for example, like if somebody appeared in 3 live sketches, that's all one color. Whereas like the cold open, there's only one cold open. So if anyone has that color, then that's the one sketch. But like the things where there are multiple, it's just in general how much time they spent in live sketches, pre-tapes, etc.
Got it.
So
So
I'll throw to you, Sam.
Sure.
4 minutes and 49 seconds for the other Sam Smith, by the way. But when you see these names right here, is there anybody on the list that you were like, I thought they were on screen more, or somebody that, you know, we asked that a lot because we always use the phrase like eyeball test, like numbers don't lie. But sometimes you watch the show and you're like, wow, I didn't even remember them, or like I thought they were in there all night and they were in there for like a minute and a half. So when you watch the show, like who was the standout for you as far as that you thought that you saw them the most?
Right. Yeah. So I was anxious watching this episode to kind of figure out because it's been a while. I've been a while since I've really seen the show, and you know, there's like a hierarchy with SNL. It's kind of like almost a father and mother figure sometimes can take hold. There's sort of a clown figure, you know, who always gets laughs, that kind of thing. So I was sort of anxious to see like who was the Beck Bennett, and I was surprised to see like, man, Mikey Day. It's like seems like kind of the Beck Bennett, or like the guy now, like sort of the main male cast member, I guess, who, you know, fits those roles and is on screen a lot. I was surprised because I remember was he like a feature player when he started?
Yeah,
he started as a writer.
I was a writer. Okay.
He was a writer, and then he came in with Alex Moffat and Melissa Villasenor, and so he's the last remaining cast member from that class. Right. But now he's the second most tenured like regular player behind Keenan, you know, other than Joseph and Shay. So he's like really the kind of the leading guy outside Keenan now. So
it doesn't surprise me to see Mikey so high because I felt like I saw him a lot. And the other guy I thought I saw a lot was Devin Walker. I thought stole the show.
Yeah, this was his second biggest episode of his, you know, short 10 episode career so far.
So and he's a feature, right?
Yeah, not only feature but a rookie feature.
A rookie feature. Okay, yeah, it felt like a big night for him. I thought the Strahan, though it was just sort of a visual joke and a auditory, I guess, lisp joke, good enough for me. I liked it, and you know, he's an easy target, Michael Strahan. I wish more people knew just how good at football Michael Strahan was. He's been turned into such a guy. I mean, it's just.
I'm glad you're saying that because that's directed at people like me who are like media and pop culture obsessed, and of course have like.
Well, why would you know?
I have like 7 frames of reference for Michael Strahan that are completely unrelated to football. So I'm the people who you have to like scream at that like he was good at football. Like I just. For me, that's like the 10th thing about him that I know what you're saying.
He was like the Kelly Ripa of football. That's how good he was.
Like I can't even. To me, I'm like, there's so much I would think of first. I can't even wrap my mind around it, but I believe.
Just imagine if like, you know, like Picasso or something had like a gap between his teeth, and everyone was like, "I'm Picasso,"
and then like, Picasso just like
no, he's like an amazing.
Became sort of like a TV personality.
Right. Maybe it's a little too much praise for Michael Strahan. You get the idea. Anyway, that was good. That was good. But the real one was the HIV. I mean, his delivery on "I Ain't Gay Though" was like flawless. Just so funny, so quick and subtle, and that was to me one of the big moments of the night.
While you brought it up, Sam, I have to mention that I think my favorite line of the episode, which if I read it on paper, I don't think it would be funny really at all. But the delivery was so good by Devin Walker, was Marcelo Hernandez being like, "It's just acting. I'm not really gay." And he goes, Cap. I laughed so hard at that.
It was beautiful.
And I kept rewatching it for the screen time, and I laughed every time, which is always like a true test of like you watch it 6 times and you still laugh.
Right. It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, Nicole. So now that you've hopefully caught your breath from reading this long list, I want to throw it to you. Like, what do you see? You've looked at a lot of screen time charts, and this one is interesting. So what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, another thing, Sam, that we like to look at that I've been a theme this season that I'm always interested in is like the ratio of how many sketch appearances you're in versus how much time. So something I bring up literally every episode is I'm always fascinated by Chloe Fineman's ratios here, because her like what she does on the show has changed a lot over this last season. And so she has actually Sarah, I would say, is kind of in the same boat. Like Sarah has 4 appearances, Chloe has 3. And then they're pretty low on the list, but then I'm looking and there are other, Michael Longfellow has 4, but he's pretty low. So something I always find interesting is people who appear a lot for shorter amounts, a lot of different things, versus you'll have people who maybe appear once or twice in an episode, but they're the star of the given sketch that they're in. So that's something I always find interesting, is like those ratios. So I guess the biggest ones to point out, I could call it the Chloe effect, because I usually mention that in the context of Chloe, but she actually would not even be the main, the biggest thing to bring up in that context. I would say Michael Longfellow, 4 appearances and 1 minute and 1 second of screen time. So, an average of 15 seconds. Am I thinking correctly? 15 seconds and a quarter.
Right.
Right. I'm blanking.
I see.
Like,
so the parentheses, right? How many times they appeared, and then
exactly.
I get you. Sorry.
So like Michael Longfellow, it has 4 sketch appearances, 1 minute, 1 second. So 15 and 1/4 seconds average on all of his 4 appearances throughout the night, which, if you think about it, like, that's not a lot of time, but it's a lot of being in and out of things and making an impact where you can. Sarah Sherman would be the second most interesting, case of that, where she has also 4 and 1 minute 56 seconds. So that's like, I don't know, 26 seconds on average. I completely, made that up at random, but something like that.
It's interesting. She seemed sort of invisible in this episode. I mean, maybe it's just she played her characters so faithfully and disguised herself within them, but I forgot she was and she was someone I was excited to watch, because I've heard so much about her. I saw that famous opening with her and Jost, that big that was just
also
incredible.
Not to cut you off, just to correct myself, 29 seconds on 29 seconds on average. I just did the math. Go on.
But yeah, I was just I see the screen time, and it seems like honestly, I wish it was more, but it seems like a lot compared to what I felt. The interesting thing looking at these numbers is, your feelings and memories versus here's all the data, and it obviously doesn't lie, and thinking I saw Michael Che and Jost and Devin Walker and Mikey Day. Like, those are the 4 in my mind, and here they are, like, spread completely across. I've seen Michael Che has 2 minutes and 30 seconds, which is bizarre to me, but there you go.
Yeah, and this was Sarah Sherman's season low. So the screen time total, her average entering this episode was 4 minutes 5 seconds, which is really good for a featured player. That's just a testament to how good of a season she's having. I put up a stat recently that she's like the most improved by far screen time from this point last year to this point now. She gave it a like, so I'm glad she endorsed it.
Really?
But yeah,
that's
and
cool.
then this episode, it was just a rise of the featured players. So this was the season high for the rookies. They had 14 minutes 36 seconds. So JJ and Sarah are like the sophomore featured players, and then Devin, Molly, Marcelo, and Longfellow being the rookies. They had just a huge night. So this is the first time too that Michael Longfellow was the bottom of the rookies, but as Nicole mentioned, he was in the show 4 times. So no one had a bad night out of the rookies, and this is a season high and career high for Molly Kearney, and season high for Mikey Day. We talked about him, and so great night for Molly and Devin especially. But we saw Marcelo and Michael Longfellow a couple times too. So yeah, I think that was one of, like, amongst many headlines, that was one of them, was the featured players.
Did you guys like I did feel like there was a star of the show on Saturday? I mean, I know I'm stretching a little bit to say Devin was the star.
I'd probably say Bowen,
but he was the highlight, I guess, for me. Bowen. Okay, go ahead.
Just because of the cold open and weekend update were like big Bowen features.
And the Megan sketch, which for me was just perfect, exactly what I wanted out of a Megan, parody, pre-tape, whatever. So Yeah, I agree. I thought that Marcella was going to be Santos. I was surprised, but I mean, anything Bowen does, I'm always happy. But I was surprised. But yeah, I think just because that news story, I mean that it quite literally is like SNL political satire like candy, the whole George Santos thing. Like it could not be more ripe for SNL. So I think whoever was going to play that guy was going to be the star of this weekend show. I'm not shocked at all that we saw 2 appearances. It was kind of clear that the update was written before all the drag headlines. I would have loved to see like that be more of the bulk of it, because that's my favorite part of the whole thing. But I'm glad that was more prevalent in the cold open, and we got to see Bowen in drag. That was great. But yeah, you could really see it. That's actually a perfect way to see how SNL has to adapt in a week, because the amount that we all learned about George Santos just throughout the course of last week, every day, every hour, something new. So it was, you could tell in the writing that different lines were written with different degrees of knowledge that we, all collectively gained over the week, which is kind of a beautiful, it's like a tapestry of knowledge about this psychopathic liar. It's great.
And one of the best things about that character is I feel like he's just capable of anything. So Bowen could just walk in mid-sketch as George Santos at any moment, and it would be on brand.
It was hilarious. It really was.
Yeah.
And
any slice of life sketch, like we were saying before. Yeah, George Santos could be in any typical circumstance, and we would be like, yeah.
I listened to one of your episodes. It had John on, John Schneider, your boss. I don't know. Do we call him boss?
He's like the Lorne Michaels of the
Lorne
SNL.
Michaels of the SNL of the SNN.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, we got to get our John impressions. Everyone has one. But he made a great point about the Santos. He said, it'd be there was it's felt sort of a little ill placed with the NFL. Like it felt like we want, this could be a great ongoing recurring character who could, even come on. I think John said something like, should have come on and been like, I'm Aubrey Plaza, just kept the bit going. But because it was so funny, especially at the desk, I thought that was the best appearance of Santos.
Yeah, I was glad it was Bowen personally, just because he does the camp so well, and he just knows the source material better than probably anyone in the studio to really nail it.
I think it was
That's
7-Eleven was just I can't imagine anyone else doing that 7-Eleven line but Bowen.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 7-Eleven, and just lying that someone died at 9/11 and just having that delivery is just so funny to me.
Right.
Yeah. Although I will say, on Las Culturistas, Bowen's podcast with Matt Rogers this week, on the episode that came out today, he said he hopes that he doesn't do the impression again, not because he didn't enjoy it, but because, he hopes that George Santos does not continue to be, as much of a headline as he is. But I don't know.
Think that'll happen.
I think we're going to see more of it, and I'm very much looking forward to it.
And there's actually there's a vacuum right now for that. So I mean, every 2 years you get a new Congress. Every 4 years, maybe a new president, and new characters emerge. But I think that's SNL has been maybe missing something like that. We got a little touch of Herschel Walker from Kenan, Carrie Lake from Cecily. These kind of bit Republican characters, but this one just seems like I think you already said, Nicole, just perfect fodder for SNL. And I personally, like I said, I'm a big Bowen fan, but I was glad that it was him, because I could just see him doing anything with it, and it would be funny. Another
thing I realized, and what you're saying about these bit Republicans, I mean, the queen of kooky Republicans has departed. Cecily was nobody better at that than her. But I think that the Taylor Swift Ticketmaster extravaganza thing that's going on right now in politics, with all of these politicians like Amy Klobuchar and whoever else, all these people quoting Taylor Swift with this Ticketmaster thing, that would be, I hope that we see that this Saturday. And George Santos could just pop in and do something there. That's perfect.
Right. That would be a good cold open. Maybe George Santos walks out as the ticket master. I would be into that. I'm the ticket master. I have the tickets.
Oh yeah.
It's just the fact that he's not even impressed or happy about his own lies. He's just like bored. It's just such a funny portrayal.
I have to just give a shout out to the content, like the type of comedy this week. It reminded me, Nicole, we had TJ on earlier in the year, and I asked TJ, I go, what do you want to see stats about? And he goes, I want to know what the blackest episode of SNL is. And I'm like, this is definitely the gayest episode of SNL, and it's maybe my favorite of the season. So I was like, this is like been so much gay humor, and like even things you forgot about, like Avatar, like that was a gay sketch. Like it wasn't just like the Megan sketch or the HIV ad
because
sketch.
It wasn't just like sexual gay. It was just like culturally too, in ways that were like more universal than people even realize. It's like it was perfect. Oh my god, I'm so with you on that.
Is that Megan movie?
Loved it.
I know it's a real movie, but is that movie like out? Have you seen it?
Yes, I saw it actually Saturday night at like 5 p.m. before I watched the episode.
Live in New York?
Live in New York. I saw it in New York City Saturday night, and it was incredible. I loved it so much, and the pre-tape was like the absolute perfect part 2, like completely, because and the line about it's like Bros but for gay people was just brilliant, because I don't know how closely you guys followed that whole thing or a couple months ago, but Billy Eichner's movie Bros like was sort of aggressively marketed, and I think there are some, and Bowen was in the movie, and I saw it, and he was definitely one of the best parts of the movie for sure. But there was some sort of controversy about how it was like marketed really aggressively in certain ways, and like if it had been just sort of presented as here's a movie that everyone will love, and keep it simple, then like it could have maybe had more reach. But so like it's just so shady to say that Megan, which is about a doll who, I won't spoil what Megan's about, but it's about a doll whose purpose is to protect their little young girls and be their best friend, for that to be like gayer than a very explicitly gay movie that was marketed aggressively to straight audiences. Like it was just very shady and funny, and I the fact that Bowen was the star of that sketch, it was levels of shade, and and I was here for it.
Right.
I was here for it.
Yeah, definitely a little inside baseball with.
Oh yeah,
thing.
Very.
But, do you think
also in that movie? Oh no, in the movie Fire Island is when Bowen references the Gays in Space sketch in character, which was very inside baseball.
I was just curious, just because I didn't think we'd get into a discussion on the themes in the movie Megan. But now that we're here,
if we hadn't, I would have been so distraught. I would have been
if
upset.
I found out off air that you had seen that movie and we didn't talk about it, I'd be pretty pissed, to be honest.
Yeah.
So do you think that's intentional, like subtext in that movie?
Is what is subtext?
Like the gay themes, or like why it's attractive to that audience?
Think about like Real Housewives, it's like that, and that was a line in the sketch, was like that gay men love unhinged plastic women, it's
oh, okay, I see.
That's a perfect comparison. Or like Jennifer Coolidge, or Real Housewives, like that whole culture is like that's the best comparison that I would give, is like Real Housewives, Jennifer Coolidge. Think that sort of vibe is that's very gay men. So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. So that's okay. That's the whole I don't want to call it Barbra Streisand unhinged, but I'm thinking of all this.
Yeah. Like the gay icon women who are like
right, little kooky
divas. Oh my god. Yeah, totally.
Anyone
it,
who clones.
It's funny, they don't teach this in school, Nicole. So I appreciate you explaining this.
Well, here I am to educate.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Barbra Streisand cloned her own dog. Just look it up. We're gonna move on now. So
that's unhinged.
That's unhinged, right there.
Yeah. Now I'm into
conspiracy.
I get it now. All right.
What percentage of former SNL cast members have cloned their dogs?
I hope 0. I really hope.
Back to
you have that stat? Oh,
Yeah,
good.
Mike's just gonna whip that stat out. Give him a minute. He's got all that stored away somewhere.
Yeah. Now, just to wrap this up, though, I'm like, now I want Nicole to read SNL stats like George Santos, like,
Oh, that's so true.
400 minutes.
Yeah, and then it'll be a little inside joke with our YouTube listeners or our YouTube viewers who will see, but then our audio listeners, you don't know if I'm telling the truth. Just kidding. I hate inaccuracy. I would keep me up at night. I would never do that.
That's true about Nicole.
What's this big chart you just put in front of us?
That's exactly what I'm about to talk about. So
I'm sorry.
Introducing the segment.
Jesus Christ! I'll shut up.
This is the Power Rank segment. So we always do screen time to talk about the specific episode of the week, and this chart talks about the whole season at large. So it combines it's a lot of math involved. It combines appearances, screen time, recurring roles, saying live from New York. It's a ton of factors. And it kind of just spits out one number because I like to have just one number to point at. And this kind of just shows where the cast fall in like a ranking. Because as Nicole mentioned, like a Chloe Fineman might do more appearances, but for less time. And someone like Colin Jost appears once a night for a long period of time. So I was like, it's not really fair to judge them on what they do well. It's because like they'd have different strengths and weaknesses or whatever. So I made this stat up to just kind of assess everybody on an even playing field, and this is called the SNL Power Rankings. So,
got it. So,
all right, I'm gonna read them out before we discuss. Okay. All right, I'm gonna read the average over the last 10 episodes. So 10 episodes. We're in on season 48. Whew. Okay, here we go. Not as much of a mouthful as last time because this is again cast members. Okay, here we go. So again, averages for the season so far. Keenan, 101.83. Bowen, 91.59. Mikey, 89.85. Heidi, 89.35. Colin, 81.2. Ego, 80.48. Chloe, 73.48. JAJ, 64.43. Sarah, 59.82. Michael Che, 51.49. Andrew Dismukes, 47.4. Michael Longfellow, 41.29. Devin Walker, 39.21. Punky, 35.42. Marcelo, 32.51. And Molly, 31.94.
Thank you, Nicole. And for those of you watching along with us, the green is a good episode for that person. The red is not so good episode. Orange, yellow, kind of in the middle. So you can look at the season as a whole. We had 17 cast members with Cecily, and we have 16. That's why everybody jumped up the spot. So I put a +1 or a +2 if you rose in the rankings since our last meeting after the Austin Butler episode. So basically everyone kind of, bumped up a little bit. And now, sadly, Cecily's off the chart. So you can kind of look at the season as a whole because, we don't remember every sketch, every episode. Maybe I do, but, not everybody does. So we can look at that and say, like, oh, that's a statistically, objectively great episode for that person. So you look at the beginning, you see, Keenan had a huge night, and now his second best night of the season was this past episode. Same for Devin Walker. Like, he had a great episode with Megan Thee Stallion, and now he had his second best episode this past week. Things like that. We like to kind of check in on how the cast is doing and who's rising and who's falling. So Sam, you look at a lot of data. This is a big chart. What's your takeaway when you look at something like this?
So I'm looking at this chart, and if I'm getting this correctly, this is giving me flashbacks to math class, and it's just really making me nervous.
That's really the idea. That's what we try to cultivate here. Everyone's favorite class is math.
I feel,
as far as I know.
I feel like I can ask the teacher questions, but I couldn't back in the day. So I'm going to ask you: am I right to understand that Kenan Thompson is the winner of these power rankings so far?
Yes, and he almost always is.
And he always is.
There was a moment in the season where Heidi Gardner was top of the chart, and Cecily just kind of rose right up the chart. But
although it should be noted, not to cut you off, Mike, but Heidi is the only person on the entire list who is -1. Everyone else is either plus. That's to say, has either moved up a spot or multiple spots, or stayed in the same spot. So that's fascinating that she's the only person on the list to move down, and it's one spot she's moved down.
And it makes sense because she's having an unbelievable season. So when posting huge numbers week after week, and then you have like a normal night, you're going to drop, because her average entering this week was 89.35. Or no, sorry, that's the average right now. Before it was 92.58. So it went down 3 points just by posting a normal episode. Like, you know, you're in SNL and you post a 60 score, like that's a solid night. But for Heidi, it's not. So yeah, when you have Keenan 136, Bowen 104, Mikey 120, those are their scores for the past week. So they rose, ahead of Heidi in that regard.
So it must be something that's often talked about in the SNL community, where like Keenan Thompson like the star of the show, because Keenan's been around, I feel like, in my life ever since I was a kid.
Yeah, 20 seasons.
But for some reason doesn't, like, am I crazy? Doesn't feel like the star, feels always sort of like a supporting character. What's up with that? Am I crazy?
You want to take this one, Nicole?
So, phrase that again. What did you say?
There's just something with Keenan where, like, I feel like there's been an effort, because he's obviously so commonly featured. He's right here. I'm looking at, he's at the top of the list, where like he's never referred to as like the star of the show, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, something with Keenan, again, we also sometimes will do MVP polls. Keenan, everybody loves Keenan. If you were to just poll people and say, like, not to say who is someone's least favorite, we would never do that. But Keenan would be the fewest people's least favorite. Like,
right.
Absolutely. If we did that poll, like,
I'm sure you're right.
I am super confident on that. However, he's not often on an episode to episode basis. He doesn't poll that well when we do MVP polls for our social media audiences. So I think that's because, sort of what you're saying, whether his role on the show, he really, the reason people are still happy to have him, the reason the show is so happy, the audience is so happy, is because he makes everyone around him look better. It's not because he always is the center of attention and he has to have the best joke in the sketch. Like, nobody who was like that could sustain on the show like this. It would, we would get sick of a person who was only at their best or only good when they're like really, really front and center. So it's a good thing. If he was MVP polling high, 20 seasons in, like, then he should leave, but he's not. And it's because he really, really, really makes everyone around him look better. He does sort of have that. Often he's anchoring sketches, he's amazing at playing hosts on game shows or things like that. So he's really good at anchoring or supporting or all those sorts of things. And so, but then what we're also saying is, Mike and I are like, yeah, he's at the top. But if we hadn't been analyzing this week to week, I mean, I know I would be shocked to see it if I wasn't used to it. And that is because he has so many appearances where you're not really thinking about him because he's just anchoring. Whereas like a Sarah Sherman, every time she's on the screen, you're thinking about her. You're not thinking about the other people in the sketch as much. It's like, oh, Sarah's on the screen and she's doing something very memorable and very bold. And so it's like people are always surprised, myself included, that her pure numbers aren't higher than they are. But then her audience polling is like through the roof. So things like that are kind of my answer to that.
I just want to piggyback off Nicole's take right there, is that, first of all, Keenan is like a statistical anomaly on this show because he just like dominates in every category. So it would be crazy. And that's why I made a big deal earlier this year when Heidi Gardner was in first. I'm like, this is someone in first place not named Keenan Thompson. So it's like interesting because this stat is almost like save the seat for Keenan at number one. And it's interesting to see who falls in the next 15, 16 slots. But I think when Keenan's career is all said and done on SNL, he'll be someone, we talk about people who might be born for SNL, John Belushi, Kate McKinnon, people like that. I think Keenan's someone who perfected or mastered SNL. So I would say that he's somebody who
10,000 hours in a way.
Yeah, exactly. And, he's been in over 1,600 sketches maybe at this point, or around 1,600 right now. And it's because the longevity, of course, like goes without saying, 20 seasons will never be caught. But it's also just somebody who can be on stage. I put a lot of emphasis on this, opinion-wise, not stat-wise, but somebody who can do a lot of live set work. So he gets a lot of screen time because he does a lot of live set work, not like maybe Pete Davidson or Kyle Mooney or even Chris Redd, kind of half and half. Chloe Fineman, someone who can star really quickly in a pre-tape. So Keenan is somebody who just like eats up screen time, but in the best of ways, because it's somebody who you're not like, you don't have Keenan fatigue necessarily, because he's, like Nicole said, making everyone look good, moving things along. Just, he dictates tempo a lot. So it's kind of like, I feel like we learn more about Keenan by looking at the numbers than we do watching the show. And that's kind of like why I love doing that with our great
Very well
community.
said. I love how you said that. I couldn't agree more.
It's very interesting. I mean, I assume both you guys watched all that if you're sketch comedy fans, right? And yeah, it's just he's an interesting guy. I just feel like there's really no one like his career. I'm not even calling him sort of exceptional, really, because I really don't think he is. Like, he's one of those people I'm pretty sure like is not a genius at what he does, but there's a certain something or other that goes into his role, and obviously sustaining, and everything you said, Nicole, which I have been thinking about, which is making other people look good. Such a what do you call it? A role where a thing where you don't get the praise, a thing.
Unsung hero.
Unsung hero. Gracias. That role is said that for a reason. They don't get written about, analyzed very steadily, but Kenan Thompson certainly has that. It's just interesting seeing the numbers like that. You see him right on top there. Yet, this is not he's not winning any Mark Twain prizes, probably, if that makes sense.
Right. And it's interesting to see he's just somebody to watch, as he's gonna, finish his 20th season on the show. He's, been there, like I said, longer than anybody else, but we're approaching SNL 50. And it's just kind of like a, will he or won't he? Is he gonna stay? That's kind of what I want to wrap up tonight about, is the kind of new era of SNL. This is our first episode of 2023, but it's also our first, I don't even want to say Cecily specifically. I want to say our first post Kate 80 Cecily. I think that was an era of SNL.
Oh yeah.
That followed the Sudeikis, Hader, Sandberg wig era, which both had carried some Fred Armisen, Will Forte, Seth Meyers, which followed the era of Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Maya Rudolph, and Daryl Hammond. So you can see the linear progression, but this is like a definitive start. This Aubrey Plaza episode, whether it ends up being the best of the season or top 5 or whatever, it's definitely a changing of the guard. I think for the better, and just interesting storyline going forward, because something has to change, and I think it has. We saw the rookies emerge, and we saw, we didn't see those 3 titans of SNL women that have been on our screens for so long. So that's kind of, I want to go there next. So I just want to, right before I take the graphic on the screen, Nicole, we talked about Heidi and Ego a lot, but of course, Sarah Sherman, we love her. Is that do you think we have a new feminine era ahead of us, or we just finished the golden feminine era of SNL and maybe there's something undiscovered ahead of us?
That's a good question. I mean, yeah, I think that the Kate 80 Cecily will forever be the era of SNL that was far more defined by its women than by its men. And I don't think we're in that again. I don't think we're not in that again. But we are sort of, yeah, I would say I don't think that the era will be defined in that way. Whereas the last era for me, that's by far the defining feature, is just the mere fact that the women dominated and were so memorable and were so beloved and were so dynamic and worked together really well because, you know, thinking back, Kristen Wiig, I love Kristen Wiig. And that was a huge, I mean, she was huge for women in comedy, like Bridesmaids having, you know, like she co-wrote that script with Annie Mumolo and Melissa McCarthy being nominated for a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her role there. Like that was so groundbreaking for comedy and women in comedy, specifically Bridesmaids. The older I get, the more profound I realized that moment was. And that was like at Kristen towards the end of her run at SNL. So she was huge for women in comedy, for women on the show. But then you think, oh, she really didn't work, nothing against her at all, but you don't have a ton of memorable moments of her working collaboratively with other women of her time. And so that was sort of like feminism light, you know, like we had this absolute dominant, amazing woman star who
Yeah, I mean, Kristen was the only woman in the cast for a bit.
Yeah.
Before Casey Wilson came in.
Exactly. Yeah. So like that was huge, and then certainly paved the way for an era where like Kate 80 and Cecily could all coexist. Like I don't know if comedy was ready for like 3 woman powerhouses to be so dominant when it was Kristen's time. So like I feel like it's just she kind of paved the way for that, and now I feel like we're in like a post, you know, some sort of post-feminist era, and I say that as if, you know, we cured, you know, misogyny and feminism is totally where it needs to be. It's not how I feel, but we did it, Joe. But I think but I do think that like this current era, and I say next era, but we're going to be talking about the end of the era we're talking about, you know, soon enough. So we're very much in the era that is the next era. And I don't know. I don't have the words for it yet, but I don't think. No, I think there's a post-feminist quality to it. I will say, or a post, you know, like a post-suffragette movement.
Right. It would feel. Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, like I think to go on that, Nicole, like it would feel regressive to acknowledge the feminist quality of the show. It's like we're sort of beyond that now. Like we're post it, sort of what you're saying. It's like
in theory, yeah.
Well, in theory, right.
I think there is like a lot of truth to that, and I'm hesitant to say that's what it is, because misogyny is awful. But I think there's an air of that a little bit. Totally.
Right. It was interesting for me going into this show, having not really sort of absorbed an entire episode in just many years, just how funky it was. It's a funky cast, and you know, I don't know if there's a word for that, the funky era, but like Sarah Sherman is something I've never really quite seen before, but yet is so familiar to me growing up in a very funky town. It's like to see that kind of like, this is not for like very private kind of sense of humor on screen is like mind blowing to me. So, you know, that feels like a barrier in even of itself, just sort of oddness.
Yeah.
On TV.
That's exactly, you basically took the take right out of my mouth, Sam, because I was kind of, you know, shout out to Nicole for answering a very hard question, but I think the answer is there is no answer, which is a very lame answer. So I'm glad Nicole didn't give that answer. But it's just that I look at the cast. I mean, I just have, you know, the names up on screen for a while, and I just see a lot of diversity in the cast. I see a lot of diversity in the writer's room. And I was thinking too, you know, Kate 80 Cecily talk about that's such an era defined by these like multi-talented, you know, just women who can do everything on the show, and they succeeded. Obviously, they wouldn't have stayed so long if they didn't make it a, you know, an imprint. But also is that like, you know, the Beck and Kyle era and the Chris Redd and Pete Davidson era was a thing concurrent that was a counterweight to that. But also, I just don't see, it's funny how things change, you know, overnight seemingly. That like even that humor right now, it's so recent, but it almost just seems, I don't want to say obsolete, but I feel like this cast is almost like, oh, we don't have, you know, archetypes the same way that they do. They're always going to do sketch comedy. Like, I mean, look at the film noir sketch. or the taboo board game sketch, something like that. Doing comedy is archetypal. You're going to do, fulfill gender roles and fulfill comedic archetypes. But I look at this cast and the way it's heading, and I think it's almost more exciting to not have a label. Not that we know there's a label when we're living in the era, but it's kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to get tonight. And I think you said the funky era is kind of right on, because it's like, is this going to be a Sarah night? Is this going to be a Bowen night? Maybe it'll be a Michael Longfellow and, night, or at Chloe and Andrew night. It just like, it doesn't seem like Kate McKinnon is playing, Jeff Sessions again, and now it's time for Pete Davidson to rap. It just maybe when Colin and Michael leave, it'll feel even more uncharted territory. But for right now, I think SNL is like really exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, to beat the liberal thing a little bit, it's like, it's crazy to think of just how long so much of what we're seeing on TV was just kept off the TV because of the sort of excuse of like, the people just aren't going to like it, or they're not going to get it, or they're not, it's not representative of blah, blah, blah. And then you watch this show that's like, as you said, just so diverse, probably, I assume, the most diverse it's been. And just like how fun it is, how it all works. It's not, it's not like it's dissonant, the senses of humor. It's all one thing. Everyone seems to be jiving together. Everyone's different styles. So it's like, well, it's just, it's to put it in perspective is worth doing, I guess. I'm certainly have that way, that coming in, having not seen the show for so long. So that was my take away from it.
So we have a show coming up this week. Michael B. Jordan, another first-time host. So he'll be the 39th first-time host in the last 3 seasons.
My sisters call him the most gorgeous man alive. I've heard this take from many people. Yes.
That's certainly up for debate. And People magazine has said that before. A couple of years back, he was
really.
Oh yeah, I think like 2018 or 2019. He's had the title before.
We had Paul Rudd last year, who was also had that title, right?
Oh yeah, we've had a good number.
That number.
Haven't had Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise host yet.
Yeah,
I don't think that'll happen. Anyway, we have a new show coming up. We'll have a By the Numbers with all those stats afterwards. But yeah, this was a blast. Sam, you have a good time?
Absolutely. Oh, great time.
Doing something unholy on the podcast.
Naughty. Is that a line from the song? No. Dirty.
It's a Sam Smith song.
Kind of, I think. Yeah. Oh yeah. Another.
Also, we haven't talked about Sam Smith enough tonight. I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but I laughed my ass off when that girl popped out of the dress.
Kim Petras.
I thought it was hilarious. I don't know if it was like serious or not, but
yeah, it was like, silly. Really it was camp.
Okay, all right. Well, that can be.
It was very camp. It was adding to the gayness, the camp of it all.
The camp.
It's very funny. The camp of it all.
I felt like that Gloria track really slowed down the night. I was like, Jesus.
It was so much happened here. I get back to the Biden thing, like the president's on the show, and it's like the least interesting thing is this was the densest, craziest show I think I've ever done stats on, because there was so much going on, and like meanwhile there's like a choir and Sharon Stone. I'm like, all right, what's up next? There's like I tried to kind of name the sketches as we went along, because if you want to check out a kind of a sketch by sketch, check out the Hot Take Show John hosts on Saturday nights.
I sure will.
And check out the Roundtable for Monday nights, where they do a deeper dive. This show we kind of look, micro and macro instead of just straight through. Mm-hmm. But this show was absolutely wild. So I'm excited to watch it for a third time. But there's so much happening that you go like, wait, was that taboo sketch? Like, was that from a different episode? Like,
right. Right. Yeah, we even didn't mention that. Maybe the funniest sketch of the night.
Right. That was so good.
Yeah.
So anyway, find me and Nicole back here same time, 8:30 on a Wednesday. Nicole, do you have anything to say to listeners before we say farewell?
No, I don't. I don't.
Look at all these comments, Nicole. You have all these.
I don't.
These people have all this stuff.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Sam, anything to promote for the
Someone said
people?
great. Someone said great point, Sam, in the comments, and I'm just giving them a little shout out right now. And it was a good point, wasn't it?
Hey,
It's on the screen now.
Oh, really? Oh, this
Yeah.
is fun. I'm having too much fun. Okay.
too much fun. No, you can have fun. It's okay.
Thank you all.
We
for having
permit
me.
fun in moderation here.
We permit fun in moderation. I appreciate that.
There's a fun quotient.
Yes.
Yeah. You can
Right.
hit it, but you can't exceed it.
It
I
cannot
won't.
be exacerbated under any circumstances.
I
But
won't.
yeah, anything to say to the listeners, Sam?
Nothing to
we'll
plug.
let you know what they think, and maybe you'll be back. But I can't, no promises.
Nothing to plug. Just peace and love. All the
So
good
important.
stuff. Oh yeah.
All right. Well,
Oh,
that
yeah.
does it for Nicole Rovine, Sam Smith. I am Mike Murray with the Saturday Night Network. We'll see you next time. Thank you.